How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
My fellow Americans, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States of America. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, absolutely happy to have you. I want to begin by playing an answer. I played you Ted Kennedy's rambling answer about why do you want to run for president. Well, Kamala Harris sat down with Roland Martin, and he asked her the same thing. And just listen.
Why do you want to be president? There's somebody who's saying, why should I trust her with the power of being commander-in-chief?
I love our country, Roland. I believe in the American people. And I know we are a people who have the character, that have ambition, that have aspirations, dreams. And I intend to be a president who meets people with opportunities for them to not just get by, but get ahead. I believe in our country and the importance of its strength in terms of what that means to the world.
Okay. Feel good vibe, huh? Really? Oh my. I am not sure that's a compelling answer. I'm not sure Kamala Harris has been able to hone the message. And again, I want to, it's somewhat repetitious here, but this is important for everyone to understand. Just objectively, not looking at, and I know that I mean, we're in this wild world now where if you seem like you're excusing something from Kamala Harris, the right comes after you, the left comes after you because they know you're not on their side, but just trying to like take the partisanship out of it and looking at it. She is a bad candidate. Democrats have known that all along. They were warning about it in 2023. You had the Jonathan Martin piece in Politico in February 2023 that Harris wasn't fit. Democratic leaders knew it. You had the New York Magazine piece in September of 2023, the begging Joe Biden to drop Kamala Harris, that she was dragging him down. She wasn't good. And they were stuck because of identity politics on the left. You couldn't ditch the first black female vice presidential candidate without serious blowback, so they were stuck. So they went with her. Remember, by the way, all those people who were convinced that they were going to ditch her, and I kept telling you there was no way they could. But she's not a good candidate. On top of that, though, I do think you have to understand, in the interest of intellectual honesty and fairness, that she's been running for vice president of the United States until about 5 minutes ago. She wasn't running for president. So Joe Biden drops out after the first week in August, after the Republican convention. Joe Biden drops out. Kamala Harris inherits a campaign team that is predisposed to putting their candidate in a bunker to not be seen. Her first political instinctual act is she wants to run with Tim Walz instead of the Jew from Pennsylvania because she doesn't want to anger Arab American voters in Michigan, even though the campaign won't say that. That's God's honest truth. Now she might lose Pennsylvania and lose the election. Her instincts aren't good and never have been. I mean, we need to remember that in 2019, Kamala Harris ran as far left as she could, started at about 40-45% of the polling, and ended at about 3.5% to 4% before dropping out. Never made it to Iowa. She's not a good candidate. She never was a good candidate, and any Democrat who tells you she's a good candidate has been lying to you the whole time. They've known she wasn't a good candidate. There's a problem for Kamala Harris, too, and it is that she doesn't relate to voters she doesn't know. Now, there's a particular political skill. I want to talk about a local politician. This came up in a dinner. I had a very nice dinner last night with some donors to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. They came down to meet me, local steakhouse where I live, instead of me having to drive. It was fantastic. We had a great dinner, and I was talking about a local politician in my area, coroner, local politician. Man could be king of the county, and people would let him be dictator for life. He shows up at the funerals of the dead. The families of crime victims, if they're too poor to afford funerals, he helps them find the charitable resource to pay for funerals, just very hands-on. It doesn't matter whether you're black. It doesn't matter whether you're white. It doesn't matter whether you're rich. It doesn't matter whether you're poor. He cries with you. He holds your hand. He does all these things. He's a super compassionate, empathetic person. Everybody loves him. He could be the most corrupt politician in America, and people would vote to reelect him because he's just that hands-on, particularly with grieving families. Kamala Harris isn't like that. There are many bad things said about Donald Trump by many people, myself included. But for all of the people who say, you know, Donald Trump isn't really interested in you, he's just using you, the truth is that Donald Trump gets his voters and the people he needs to reach out to. Donald Trump's been able to build a very diverse coalition of people, from the working class to some professionals who resent the elite. Very different groups of people, but he's able to reach out to them and understand what they want and what makes them tick. He's a great marketer. He's a salesman. Kamala Harris isn't. The result is that Kamala Harris just doesn't really know how to talk to people to get their vote. Let me play this clip for you. Let me see if I can find it. I got several clips here. I got to make sure I got the right one because they're all Kamala Harris. Yes, listen, this is Kamala Harris talking to black men in Detroit.
So you may not know, but you will appreciate, I'm the first vice president to grow chili peppers at the vice president.
Okay, I like that.
Including Scotch bonnet peppers. You
Real.
know about that one. Come on now.
Real hot, real heat, real
Come
spice.
on.
They don't know nothing about the
I mean,
scope scale.
that's hotter, you know, that habanero
Every-
Scotch bonnet.
Okay, listen, I have a soft spot for people who like to cook. I don't care about their politics. I think Kamala Harris and I could get in the kitchen and cook a recipe and have a great conversation. The woman cracks eggs with one hand. That means she knows what she's doing. Good for her, growing Scotch bonnet peppers and habanero peppers and the vice presidential lawn. But just, okay, you're having a conversation with black men. How am I going to convince the black men that I'm authentic? I grow peppers in my yard. Really? Really? Or listen to this answer. Joe Rogan, this is another reason this interview with Joe Rogan isn't going to happen. Joe Rogan called this out. This is Kamala Harris doing an interview with, I think it's Soledad O'Brien on BET about voter ID. Listen to her answer here.
Agreeing to voter ID, one of those compromises that you'd support?
I don't think that we should underestimate what that could mean. Because in some people's mind, that means, well, you're going to have to Xerox or photocopy your ID to send it in to prove you are who you are. Well, there are a whole lot of people, especially people who live in rural communities, who don't. There's no Kinko's, there's no Office Max near them. People have to understand that when we're talking about voter ID laws, be clear about who you have in mind and what would be required of them to prove who they are. Of course, people have to prove who they are, but not in a way that makes it almost impossible for them to prove who they are.
People have to prove who they are, but not in a way that makes it almost impossible for them to prove who they are. And y'all rural voters out there, y'all ain't got no Kinkos. Y'all ain't got no Staples and Office Max. How you going to photocopy your driver's license out there? Sonny Bubba Junebug Johnson going to come to your house and get y'all driving license, and people who move to the South out in rural America who come from the North, they ain't going to know what a driving license is because they're looking for a driver's license, not a driving license from Sonny Bubba Junebug Johnson. What does she think that rural America is like? Well, people who live in rural America, their car tires are square and very clunky, and it takes a lot of diesel fuel to fire over the flat treads of the square tire to get them into civilization where they can procure a driver's license in order for the right to vote. And they must go to the stenographer and have it drawn out on a piece of paper because they lack the tools of the common device called a Hewlett-Packard inkjet printer photocopier fax machine. They do not have the lines or wires capable of utilizing such a common device in rural, primitive America, where they eat whole hog roast barbecue. Really? She doesn't. That's the problem. That's the fundamental problem for Kamala Harris. She doesn't relate to people outside her own bubble. She thinks the way to get black men is legal free weed and chili peppers. And she thinks it is a great denunciation of voter ID to say, well, there ain't no Staples out there in rural America. They can't get a photocopy. By the way, I got my photo ID, and you didn't have to have a photocopy. Does she even know how voter ID laws work? You don't take a photocopy of your driver's license. You take your actual driver's license to register to vote. You don't have to take it, except when you go vote, you take your driver's license. You're driving to the polls. You're going to have your driver's license. She doesn't understand these people. So she doesn't understand rural voters. She doesn't understand black men. Black women, by the way, continue to say Kamala Harris doesn't understand them. Why? Because she doesn't have their lived experience. She's from a family of immigrants and moved to Canada when she was young. She doesn't seem to relate to them. And it's why, I'm hearing from Democrats and Republicans about the internal polling, and all of them are concerned on the Democratic side that Kamala Harris is starting to lose, that the vibes have shifted against her. When you're running an election on vibes and not substance, when substance interferes with the vibes get disrupted. You can't run a vibe election when the substance of the debate shifts against your vibes. And that's what's happened. The substance of the debate has shifted against her vibes. There's no way to create new vibes to overcome a substance that works against you. It was a substance-free campaign, and now that she's getting asked questions on substance, we realize, one, she's not intellectually brilliant. She's actually a dumb person. She is a dumb person, and you may be offended by me saying she's a dumb person, but she's a dumb person who is not challenged on her dumbness, and so her dumbness can come across as some sort of intellectualness because she uses polysyllabic words to cover the fact that she's actually stupid and shallow, and doesn't relate to white voters, and doesn't relate to black voters, and doesn't relate to anyone outside a progressive bubble in which she lives, and actually is surrounded by a bunch of white progressives who want weed and say, hey, we'll make it about black men and free weed, and it'll get us the free weed. That's why I think Trump could not just win, but win the popular vote. Still a hard task for him. But the trend lines seem to be there. She doesn't understand her audience. And if you don't understand the audience, you can't keep their loyalty. And if you can't keep their loyalty, you can't get their vote. Donald Trump's audience is loyal. Kamala Harris's audience is loyal because they don't like Trump. It's not that they like her. And when you are supporting someone out of dislike for the other person as opposed to liking that person, the vote's not as strong. The bond Trump has with his voters is far stronger than the bond Kamala Harris has with her voters. And the voters she actually needs to overcome where they are in the race, she doesn't know how to talk to them. It's just become abundantly obvious. Greetings. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson across the United States of America. I'm happy to have you here. I continue to see reports coming out of Israel about the Hamas leader being killed. What's so interesting to me is the number of people who want to vilify Israel for killing a bad guy. And the anti-Semitism that continues to creep up at times like this. The reality is Yahya Sinwar was a monster. And he plotted and planned the massacre of Jews. He is no hero. He is no martyr. He will find in his death the depths of hell. And Israel did good. They did good. Sinwar, was let out of an Israeli prison, had been there for some time, rose to the top of Hamas. And after the actual political leader of Hamas was killed, he, the military leader, became the leader of all sides and has been wiped off the face of the earth now. He's a horrible, was a horrible, horrible monster. And, there are still hostages held by Hamas. Perhaps it's now time for them to get a clue and release them. Israel will come for them as they have come for Hezbollah, and they will come for Hamas. Israel got a wake-up call on October 7th. They had been lulled into complacency. The monsters invaded, killing over 1,200 of them, taking hundreds hostage, many of them still being held, others killed. And they have been systematically and ruthlessly killing the monsters. Israel has done a good thing. And we are all safer, frankly, because of what Israel has done. And we shouldn't ignore that fact. We are all safer because Israel has been slaughtering Hamas and Hezbollah. It is a slaughter, and they deserve it. Good for Israel. Now, I want to recommend a great group for you. In fact, I got a phone call meeting with them this afternoon. I'm a big supporter of Americans for Prosperity. Here's one of the reasons I like Americans for Prosperity. They haven't changed as so many people on the right have changed their views as politics have changed. Americans for Prosperity has been tried and true, grounded and convicted in common sense conservative solutions, and they'd love to have you a part of them. They are the largest leading grassroots organization in the country. They happen to be on our side. You can go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer today to sign up with them. americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. AFP will train you up in the ways of common sense conservatism. They advocate for families. They advocate for school choice. They advocate for common sense border solutions. They advocate for common sense conservative solutions across America. They have chapters in just about every state now. And if there's not one in your state, you might be able to help them set it up. But as far as I know, in every state I broadcast in, they've got a chapter. You can sign up with it at americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. They give you the facts and figures on how common sense conservative solutions can benefit our lives. They teach you how to make that case. They're a great group. americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. Sign up with them today. Hello there. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. Kamala Harris's campaign has pulled back local television advertising in Milwaukee and reallocated it to Philadelphia, where it believes the campaign is concerned about turnout and margins. This comes as Pennsylvania political officials from the Democratic Party are blasting the Harris's campaign and in claiming it is incompetent when it comes to dealing with Pennsylvania. This is, where is this? This appears to be, in Great Britain. Good grief. I got to read you this. This is from a British school district to parents. I realize not here yet. On Friday, October 18th, our school will be taking part in a Blue Nose Day. This will entail the heating being turned off throughout the school day to conserve energy. We are doing this to help reduce our school carbon footprint and raise the importance of being more sustainable. On the 18th of October, students should maintain the exact uniform standards as usual, but we are recommending that they wear a black V-neck jumper if you already have one, or any non-visible layers under their uniform. Please note hoodies will not be permitted and blazers should be worn. Please do not hesitate to contact if you have any concerns. Now a news article. The Blue Nose Day at Walsingham School has been canceled after outrage. Your children, this is my problem with government schools. They're being used, your children are, as experiments. And by treating your children as experiments, they're also trying to indoctrinate your children into their anxieties. And I find it very, very disturbing that the left, through the schools, whether here or there, is attempting to use your children as proxies for their own neuroses. Now, if you'll excuse me, got to take a quick time out here.
Now,
this is Netanyahu
all
speaking.
your leaders will be eliminated. So just remember that. But those who will bring back our hostages, they will be saved. But those who will hurt our hostages, believe me, their days are numbered. The return of our hostages is an opportunity to really bring them home and really solve everything. The light is coming up, the dark is retreating. Hakila, all of them have been eliminated. I'm calling upon you, the people of this region. It is a wonderful opportunity to thwart the axis of evil and to bring burgeoning and flourishing of this area. We have to bring this blessing to all of us. Now it is clear to everyone why we stubbornly continued fighting and why we said we have to go to the stronghold of the Hamas in Rafah. Why we said, because that is where the arch murderer was hiding. I would like to salute all the GSS, the IDF, all of them. There is no better than them. And now it is clear more than ever before that the good will prevail over the evil. And believe me, the war has not ended yet. It is hard. And yes, we're paying heavy prices. And I would like to express from the depth of my heart my mourning and my condolences to the families who have lost their dearly beloved. Your and their sacrifices are bringing us to the victory. And in the words of David, our king, you will see that this will happen.
That is Benjamin Netanyahu through an interpreter talking about Sinwar, saying the war is not over. And they're calling for a return of all the hostages and calling for Hamas to stand down. Whether or not it actually happens, I'm not going to hold my breath on it actually happening. But this is actually pretty momentous news. Sorry to step out mid-monologue, mid-thought. I wanted to cover Netanyahu. He's still speaking through an interpreter. It's being covered by most major American media outlets as well, that they have killed the leader of Hamas. They found him hiding in Rafah. You notice he noted that Israel dared to go where everyone told them not to go and do what they told them not to do because it was necessary to get Sinwar, which they have done. A big deal. Now, back to my point, this story of school kids in Great Britain, but it's happening here as well. Progressives like to take over institutions because, remember, progressivism is power. And if you can co-opt institutions, you can exercise power over other people. One of the things they did in this British school is they told parents that, hey, your kids are going to come to school on Friday and they're going to freeze to death. You better put them in a jumper, but they got to wear their school uniform. You can't put them in hoodies and heavy jackets. We want them to be cold. We want them shivering. We want them to understand. Parents want their kids to go to school and actually get an education, not to be part of an experiment. It's happening in this country too. Schools in this country, whether it's transgenderism, whether it's climate, you name it, wanting to use your kids for experiments, for their own neuroses. Parents are getting fed up with it. So I want to spend just a moment again on the issue of boys and girls sports. Because I'm led to believe from several conversations, including one yesterday that I had with someone close to the Trump campaign about their internal polling, that the boys and girls sports issue is a sleeper issue. You know, the Wall Street Journal did an editorial on it last week. And a lot of people on the left laughed and said, this is not changing elections, except Colin Allred in Texas has now fallen further behind Ted Cruz in the Texas Senate race, just as Democrats were starting to say he can win. In the polling average, he's now slipped. It comes after Ted Cruz began attacking Colin Allred for opposing legislation that would block boys from girls sports. In Ohio, Bernie Moreno has begun to surge, and it comes as he has attacked Sherrod Brown for opposing boys and girls sport, for supporting boys and girls sports and opposing legislation that would prohibit it. And I am told fairly reliably by not just Republicans that it is a sleeper issue, and that it's a sleeper issue with Black and Hispanic parents. And that white progressives and their own neuroses and anxieties and demented views, imposing them on kids through schooling, they can't understand it, they don't fathom it, and yet it's become an issue that is showing up in polling, and it is an issue that is pulling Republicans away from Democrats in the polling and giving Republicans wind at their back, pushing them forward. Parents, particularly Black and Hispanic parents, are deeply, deeply, deeply concerned with the growing number of boys showing up in girls' sports, potentially depriving girls of college scholarships for girls' sports. Listen, for a long time, I tried to convince my daughter that she should take up golf because, and this is a hint to all of you parents, a lot of schools struggle to field girls' golf teams. And if your daughter gets good at golf, competent at golf, your daughter has the potential to get a full ride athletic scholarship to the college of her choice on a golf scholarship. Why? Because due to Title IX, these schools have to balance out their sports teams. Golf is a natural fit. And a lot of girls don't want to play it. But increasingly, there are boys who are saying they're girls, who progressives are deciding they're girls, and they're taking these slots from real girls. And then there's also the power play. So there was the Star Trek episode of Captain Picard, and the episode was called Chain of Command. And the bad guys, the Kardashians, had captured Captain Picard. And they wanted him to say how many lights there were. They wanted to exercise control. I think if I remember it right, and some nerd is going to angrily email me if I get it wrong, I think it was that they showed the captain 4 lights. And they insisted that he say there were 5 lights, and he would continue to be tortured until he said there were 5 lights. But there were 4 lights. At the very end, he's released, and he says defiantly, "There are 4 lights." And he was right. What's happening is very much the same thing as that episode. These people, progressives, they want to exercise control over you and your child. They want to exercise control over you and your job. They want you to look at someone who clearly has an Adam's apple, clearly has facial hair, clearly is a man, and say this man is a woman. They want to force you to believe the lie. Because once you begin to believe the lies, once you're willing to say the lies, it's like East Europe. What was the lives, the secret lives of others, something like that? The story about in East Germany, what a state the East Germans had built, and it was a spy state. It was a police state, and children would turn in parents, and parents would turn in children, and neighbors would turn in neighbors, and it was often because the person dared to utter the truth, and they had to be reported. That's what's going on with this transgender issue in colleges and in elementary and secondary schools, where the people who tell the truth are being reported and turned in because they need you to believe the lie. Because if you're willing to utter the lie, you're willing to believe anything. They've broken you. They can control you. My kid was talking about this yesterday. Yet again, she's in college. She's in a class. There's a trans kid. This very nice kid. A little odd. But if any of the kids who aren't urban refined progressives dare say she invisibly is a she, obviously is a she, they get lectured and bullied. One kid got frog marched to the front of the room, lectured about pronouns. You understand that the pronouns is a pathology of the left, much like the East German police state. They need you to say that there are 5 lights. They need you to say that the girl is a they, or the boy is a she, or that thing is a z. They need you to say it. You have to say it because that means they've broken your will, and they've gotten you to now reject the truth for a lie, and it allows them to exercise power over you. It's what's happening in schools around the country. It is progressives using the captured need of education. I mean, if your kids aren't getting educated, you go to jail. So they take advantage of the control of that institution to convince your child to utter a lie is the truth, because it's about power and control over you and your kids. It's not about the truth. They need you to break, unlike Captain Picard, and say there are 5 lights when there are only 4. They need you to say that the boy with an Adam's apple is a girl, because they need you to break down and reject the truth for a lie, because that's how they get control of society. And in Great Britain, they've taken to freezing kids in schools. Except the parents, there's a backlash, and that's been canceled, but it's going to happen here as well. Now, I need you to go to Vision Computers. A friend of mine actually texted me last night about Vision Computers and said, I sent his daughter to Vision to get a computer. Would they work with them? Because they thought they might get a better deal at the one-size-fits-all big box store. And I was like, yeah, Vision's going to work with you. First, tell them I sent you. And 2, they will work with you on your price point. And here's the thing. You may look today and say, this one-size-fits-all big box store computer, it's cheaper, but it's going to be replaced very quickly. The computer at Vision is not going to be replaced very quickly. It's going to last you a very long time. And they're going to make it upgradable, so when it does come time to get something new, you can just get new parts. You don't have to get a new box and everything else. And you're going to get their tech support that you're not going to get from the one-size-fits-all big box store, where if you ever have a question, or your kid headed off to college has a question, or your employee has a question because you got your computer from Vision for free, you get a special number, you call them, 15 seconds or less, you get the answer. They can remote in, they can help you with email, they can help you with printer. And let's say you don't have Vision's computers, but you need their tech support. You can get it for $179 a year for your computer. So let's say you're a small business, you can't afford an in-house IT guy. Vision can serve that function for you. So you call them, You tell them, I got 5 computers for $179 each computer. Each employee for those computers gets the phone number. They call them 15 seconds or less. You don't know where the file is, Vision tells you. You can't do something, Vision can remote in and do it for you. You need email set up, they can take care of it. You need printer set up, they can take care of it for you. Vision does it all for you, for your kid, for you, your kid at college, your sole proprietor, you're an independent contractor, you're a small business, they take care of you. Just call them at 404-COMPUTE and tell them, Eric, since you're going to save even more money. 404-COMPUTE, 404-COMPUTE, or go to visioncomputers.com. Tell Vision I sent you. You're going to save some money. They're going to get you a great computer. It's going to last you. And for $179 a year, if you have a computer from them, it comes for free. But if not, for $179 a year, you get their world-class 5-star reviewed tech support. Visioncomputers.com or 404-COMPUTE. All right, to the phones. I want to go to Angie's phone call. Welcome to the show, Angie. How are you?
Well, I'm old and tired, but I'm consistent, so
Excellent.
I guess that's a good thing.
Nice.
I was calling regarding what you were talking about, this transgender issues and stuff that's going on in public schools. And I have a granddaughter. She's in public school. She is a special needs. She has autism. And so a couple of years back, she was coming home, and my daughter was telling me about this transgender teacher and how my granddaughter was continuing to get in trouble with this teacher because the teacher is a woman who wants to be a man. So she dresses all man-like, and I don't know, she has a female name. I never do get all this stuff. And so she's telling my daughter that she and her wife, who's another woman, have had a baby. And my granddaughter's telling her, well, no, you can't have a baby. You're 2 women. You can't have a baby. You have to have a man. You can't have a baby. And she's arguing with her that, no, she doesn't have to have a man to have a baby, and that men can have babies. And my granddaughter's like, no, they can't. And so she gets in trouble. She gets ridden up. She gets in trouble. And this stuff continues to go on throughout most of the school year. And so then they're going to suspend her because she is continuing, quote, to be a problem to this teacher. And this is the only special ed teacher that they have. So I'm going to go into this meeting. There's only supposed to be like the principal and the teacher there. But, of course, we get ambushed when we get there. There's like 12 different people out of every department in the school. So I do some research and find out because teachers have this thing kind of like a Hippocratic oath, but it's a doctrine that they have to follow. They sign it. It's what they adhere to. This is our, what we are as teachers.
Yep.
So
Angie, I'm just about out of time.
Okay. So anyway, we get into the big argument, and I'm telling them, look, she can't bring her stuff into the classroom. It's specific in your doctrine that she cannot bring her outside beliefs, whatever it is, into the classroom and teach anything to the children about it or speak about it. It's
Angie,
specific in your doctrine.
I got to cut you off there, I'm afraid, because I got a hard break. But I'm glad you stood up for for this situation because this is happening more and more. And yeah, good for the kid for standing up for the truth.